In the southeastern forests of Nigeria, there exists a village called Obiagu, the lion's heart. Ask anyone in the surrounding towns about it, and they will lower their voices. They will look over their shoulders, and they will tell you the same thing. Never stay in Obiagu after midnight, because in that village, when the clock strikes 12, something walks through the streets, something that knows every name, something that collects debts that were promised centuries ago. And anyone caught sleeping after midnight never wakes up the same. Some wake with no memory of who they are. Some wake speaking in ancient languages that no living person understands. Some wake screaming about the faces they saw in their dreams, faces that followed them into waking life, appearing in mirrors, in shadows, in the eyes of their own children. And some don't wake up at all. The villagers of Obiagu have lived with this curse for 300 years. Every household knows the rules. Every child learns them before they learn to read. Lock your doors before midnight. Light 7 candles, never 6, never 8. Stay awake until dawn. Never, ever answer if something calls your name in the darkness. But rules are made to be broken, and curses are made to be fed. This is the story of how the curse began, of the promise that was broken, of the king that was awakened, and of the young woman named Ifunanya, who dared to sleep after midnight and discovered the terrible truth about what walks the streets of Obiagu when the living should be awake. If you love African folklore, if you crave stories that make your skin prickle with ancient fear, stay until the end. Because what you're about to hear is not just a story, it's a warning. And in some villages, even today, people still remember to stay awake when the midnight hour comes. Welcome to Obiagu. Welcome to the village where no one sleeps after midnight. May the ancestors protect you. Kindly subscribe to help grow this channel. 300 years ago, Obiagu was the most prosperous village in the region. The land was fertile, blessed by the river goddess Idemili. Yam harvests were abundant. Palm wine flowed freely. Children laughed in the streets. The people were wealthy, proud, and deeply connected to the spiritual world. The village was led by a powerful Dibia named Namdi, a medicine man who could speak with ancestors, heal the sick, and see futures that had not yet unfolded. Namdi was respected throughout the land. Kings sought his counsel. Warriors sought his protection. Women sought his blessings for childbirth. But Namdi had a secret. His power did not come from the ancestors alone. It came from a pact he had made with something far older, something that existed before the gods themselves, something that lived in the space between sleep and waking, feeding on the dreams of the living. The villagers called it Ekwensu Abali, the night devil, but it was older than any devil, older than any name humans had given it. The story begins on a night when the moon was swallowed by clouds and the forest fell silent. In that way, that means predators are near. Anamdi had been called to the bedside of Chief Okonkwo's youngest daughter, a girl of 7 named Adais. She had fallen into a sleep from which she could not wake. For 3 days, she lay still as death, her chest barely rising, her eyes moving frantically beneath closed lids as though watching something terrible. Namdi tried every medicine, every ritual, every prayer to every ancestor. Nothing worked. Adais was trapped in a dream, and whatever held her there would not let go. In desperation, Namdi did what no Dibia should ever do. He called out to the darkness itself. He went to the Iroko tree at the edge of the village, the ancient tree that was said to be as old as the world, whose roots reached down into the realm of spirits. There, at midnight, he performed A forbidden ritual. He cut his palm and let his blood seep into the earth. He spoke words in a language that hurt his throat to pronounce. He offered himself as a bridge between the living world and the realm of dreams. And something answered. It did not speak in words. It spoke in sensations, in images that appeared behind Nnamdi's eyes, in understanding that bypassed language entirely and planted itself directly in his mind. The entity showed him what it was, a creature of pure hunger that fed on dreams, on the energy that humans generated when their consciousness left their bodies during sleep. It had existed since the first human closed their eyes and drifted into the first dream. And it was always hungry, but it offered a deal. Save the girl. In exchange, the village would provide the entity with a regular feast. One night every month, the people of Obiagu would offer their dreams willingly. They would sleep deeply, dreaming vividly, and the entity would feast on those dreams without harming the dreamers. A small price, the entity whispered in Nnamdi's mind. One night of deep sleep each month. In exchange, I will give you power beyond measure. I will teach you to walk in dreams, to heal sicknesses of the mind, to see truths that are hidden. And the girl will wake. Nnamdi, desperate and foolish, agreed. The pact was sealed in blood and shadow. And the very next morning, Edaize opened her eyes. For 10 years, the arrangement worked perfectly. Once a month, on the night of the new moon when darkness was deepest, the villagers of Obiagu would sleep. Not ordinary sleep, but a deep, trance-like sleep filled with vivid dreams. They would dream of flying, of feasts, of reunions with dead loved ones, of adventures in impossible landscapes. And when they woke the next morning, they felt refreshed, renewed. The entity took only what it needed, leaving the dreamers unharmed. In exchange, Nnamdi's power grew. He could enter dreams and heal trauma. He could walk through people's nightmares and banish their fears. He became the most powerful Dibia in living memory, and Obiagu prospered under his guidance. But there is a law as old as time itself. All bargains with darkness eventually come due. All pacts require more than was originally promised. All hunger, once fed, only grows stronger. The trouble began with Nnamdi's son, Chukwudi. Chukwudi was young, arrogant, and hungry for power, like his father. He had watched his father perform the monthly ritual, the prayers, the offerings, the opening of the doorway that allowed the entity to feast on the village's dreams. And Chukwudi thought he understood how it worked. On the night of his father's death, for Nnamdi eventually grew old and passed into the realm of ancestors, Chukwudi inherited the role of village Dibia. He inherited the responsibility of maintaining the pact, and he inherited his father's pride, but he did not inherit his father's wisdom. Why should we feed this creature one night every month? Chukwudi asked the village elders. Why should we give our dreams to something that hides in darkness? We are children of the sun. We do not need to bargain with night spirits. The elders warned him. The pact must be honored. Your father knew this. The entity is patient, but it does not forget. And a broken promise to such a thing, the consequences would be terrible. But Chukwudi was convinced he knew better. He had studied his father's techniques. He had learned the protective rituals. He believed he could close the doorway his father had opened, seal the entity away, and free the village from its monthly obligation. On the next new moon, when the entity expected its feast, Chukwudi performed a binding ritual instead. He drew symbols of power around the Iroko tree. He burned sacred herbs. He called upon the ancestors to seal the doorway between the dream realm and the waking world. The ritual appeared to work. The doorway closed. The entity's presence faded. The village celebrated. They were free. But 3 nights later, everything changed. It began with a knock. At exactly midnight, throughout the entire village, every door was struck 3 times. Not from outside, from inside, as if something had been inside the houses all along, waiting, and was now announcing its presence. Those who were still awake heard it clearly. Those who had fallen asleep woke to the sound, their hearts hammering with primal fear they couldn't name. And then they heard the walking. Footsteps in the streets, heavy, deliberate, moving from house to house. But when people looked through their windows, they saw nothing. Just empty streets bathed in moonlight. Yet the footsteps continued, accompanied now by a sound like breathing. Deep, rattling breaths that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then came the voices. Each household heard someone calling their names. The voices were familiar. Mothers, fathers, children, friends. But wrong. The tone was off. The rhythm was off. Like something had learned to mimic human speech, but didn't quite understand how emotion worked. Obi, open the door. It's your mother. I need to come in. But Obi's mother had been dead for 5 years. Ngozi, I'm cold out here. Please, let me in. But the voice came from inside Ngozi's own bedroom, not from outside. Those who were wise kept their doors locked and their mouths shut. But fear makes people do foolish things. And 3 villagers opened their doors that first night. They were found the next morning standing in the village square, perfectly still, eyes wide open, staring at nothing. They were alive, but not present. Their bodies breathed, and their hearts beat. But whatever made them human, their consciousness, their souls, their sense of self, was gone. When their families tried to embrace them, the emptied bodies smiled. And their smiles were wrong, too wide, too knowing, as if something else was looking out through their eyes, studying the living, learning. The village buried the bodies, even though they were still breathing, because what had returned in those skins was not their loved ones, and keeping them around would only invite more horror. Night after night, the pattern continued. Midnight would arrive, and the knocking would begin. The footsteps, the voices calling names. And anyone caught sleeping after midnight would wake changed, if they woke at all. Some woke with no memories. They had to be taught their names again, taught who their families were, taught how to speak, but they never fully recovered. Part of them remained in that other place, that realm of dreams, where the entity had dragged them. Some woke, speaking prophecies in ancient languages. They would predict deaths, disasters, secrets that should have remained hidden. They became oracles against their will, channels for knowledge that came from the dream realm, and the knowledge slowly drove them mad. Some woke as something else entirely. They looked like themselves, sounded like themselves, but were subtly wrong. They would laugh at inappropriate times. They would know things they shouldn't know. They would watch their families with an expression that suggested they were studying them, learning them, perhaps preparing to wear them better next time. And some simply disappeared. They would go to sleep before midnight, and when their families checked on them after the cursed hour, they would find empty beds. No signs of struggle, no open doors or windows. The sleepers had simply been taken, pulled into the dream realm, perhaps, or consumed entirely, leaving nothing behind but cold sheets and unanswered questions. Chukwudi tried desperately to undo what he'd done. He performed every ritual he knew. He sought help from DBS in neighboring villages. He sacrificed goats, chickens, even a bull to the ancestors, begging for forgiveness, begging for guidance on how to appease the entity he'd angered. But the entity would not be appeased. The bargain had been broken. And now the price was much, much higher. The villagers learned through terrible trial and error. They developed rules for survival. Rule 1. Never sleep after midnight. The entity could only take those who were unconscious, whose spirits had left their bodies to wander in dreams. If you stayed awake, you remained safe. So the villagers trained themselves to sleep before midnight and wake before dawn, compressing their rest into a narrow window of relative safety. Rule 2. Lock all doors and windows before midnight. The entity needed invitation to enter a home fully. Locked doors weakened its power, forced it to remain mostly outside, able only to knock and call, but not to enter completely. Those who left doors unlocked often found family members missing by morning. Rule 3. Light exactly 7 candles. Not 6, not 8, but 7. The number had protective properties against night spirits. The candles had to burn from midnight until dawn, their flames acting as sentinels that kept the darkness at bay. If even one candle went out, the protection foiled. Rule 4. Never answer when something calls your name. The entity could mimic any voice, any person. It would call out in the darkness, trying to lure people outside, trying to make them open doors, trying to establish a connection. Once you answered, once you acknowledged it, you gave it power over you. It knew your name, and knowing your name meant it could find you even in your dreams. Rule 5. If you must go outside after midnight, carry iron. The old metals had power against spirit things. A knife, a nail, even a piece of wire could weaken the entity's influence, create a small sphere of protection around the bearer. But even iron couldn't save you if you fell asleep in the cursed hours. These rules became law. Parents taught them to children as soon as the children could understand. No one questioned them. No one tested them, because those who broke the rules disappeared, or worse, returned as something else. 300 years later, Obiagu still existed, but it was not a normal village. During the day, it seemed almost ordinary. Markets bustled, children played, farmers tended their crops. The village had adapted to the modern world. There was electricity now, cell phones, even a few internet cafes. Life went on, but every household had the same strange rhythm. People would begin retiring at 9 p.m. By 10 p.m., most homes were quiet, everyone trying to squeeze in 2 hours of sleep before midnight arrived. Coffee and cola nut were consumed in massive quantities to fight the drowsiness that came after midnight. The village ran on exhaustion, on determination, on 3 centuries of practiced vigilance. Visitors were strongly discouraged. The few travelers who stumbled upon Obiagu were met with urgent warnings. Leave before sunset. If you must stay, follow the rules exactly. And whatever you do, don't sleep after midnight. Most visitors didn't believe the warnings. They thought it was superstition, local color, a way to keep outsiders at arm's length. Those visitors never made that mistake twice, if they survived. Ifunanya Okafor was 23 years old, born and raised in Lagos, educated at university, thoroughly modern in her thinking. When her grandmother in Obiagu fell ill, Ifunanya reluctantly agreed to visit, her first time in the ancestral village. She arrived on a Thursday afternoon, driving her small car down increasingly rough roads until she reached Obiagu. The village looked tired, worn, older than it should have been. The people moved with a strange exhaustion, their eyes constantly darting toward the sun, tracking its progress across the sky like prisoners, counting down to execution. Her grandmother, Mama Nikoli, embraced her warmly, but with urgency in her grip. You came. Good. But you cannot stay long, granddaughter. This is not a place for young people anymore. This is not a place for anyone who has a choice to leave. Grandmother, I'm here to take care of you. The doctor said you need rest, proper care. Rest? Mama Nkoli laughed bitterly. There is no rest in Obiagu. There hasn't been rest for 300 years. That evening, Mama Nkoli explained the rules, all of them, in careful detail. She showed Ifunanya the 7 candles kept ready on the windowsill. She demonstrated how to check that all locks were secure. She explained the ritual of staying awake from midnight until dawn. Ifunanya listened with barely concealed skepticism. Grandmother, these are just old superstitions. There's no such thing as night spirits or dream monsters. These stories, they're how people in the past explained things they didn't understand. Mental illness, sleep disorders, natural phenomena. Mama Nkoli's expression hardened. You think we are foolish? You think in 300 years no one has thought what you're thinking? We've had doctors visit, scientists, psychiatrists. They all thought as you do. They all believed they knew better. And what happened to them? Some left before midnight and lived to mock us from safe distances. Some stayed awake and experienced nothing, confirming their beliefs that we were superstitious fools. And some, Mama Nkoli's voice dropped, some fell asleep after midnight. Those ones don't mock us anymore. Most don't speak at all. Ifunanya wanted to argue, but something in her grandmother's eyes stopped her. This was not the gentle woman who'd visited Lagos when Ifunanya was a child, bringing gifts and telling funny stories. This was someone who'd seen things, survived things, lived with things that had carved away her softness and left only hard, necessary truth. Just for tonight, Mama Nkoli pleaded. Follow the rules just for tonight. Tomorrow, you can decide if you believe. But tonight, granddaughter, please, for me, stay awake after midnight. Ifunanya agreed, not because she believed, but because her grandmother's fear was real. And love, if nothing else, could honor fear, even when it couldn't share it. The sun set at 6:47 p.m. By 7 p.m., the village had transformed. Streets emptied, doors locked, shutters closed. The few streetlights, there weren't many, cast pale circles of illumination that somehow made the darkness between them seem darker by contrast. Ifunanya ate dinner with her grandmother. They spoke of family, of Lagos, of everything except the approaching midnight hour. But as 9 p.m. neared, Mama Nkoli's conversation grew distracted. She kept glancing at the clock, at the windows, at the 7 candles waiting on the sill. You should sleep now, Mama Nkoli said. You have 2 hours. Use them. What about you? I will sleep later in shifts. I'm practiced at this. You are not. Ifunanya lay down on the thin mattress in her grandmother's spare room. She didn't expect to sleep. The strangeness of the day, the weight of her grandmother's fear, it all kept her mind alert. But exhaustion from the long drive caught up with her. Her eyes grew heavy. The sounds of the village, chickens settling, distant voices, the rustle of wind, faded into a soothing white noise. She drifted off. When she woke, it was 11:47 p.m. She'd slept through the window, 13 minutes until midnight. Ifunanya sat up, heart pounding. Mama Nkoli stood at the window, lighting the 7 candles with shaking hands. The old woman hadn't noticed Ifunanya was awake. Grandmother! Mama Nkoli jumped, nearly dropping the matchbox. Ifunanya! Thank God. I was about to wake you. Quick, help me with the locks. Check every window, every door. Make certain. Together, they moved through the small house. Every entrance was already locked, but they checked again and again. Triple checking became a ritual in itself, a way to fight the rising dread as midnight approached. At 11:58 p.m., they sat in the main room. The 7 candles flickered on the windowsill, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Mama Nkoli held a Bible in one hand and an old iron knife in the other. Christianity and tradition, she told Ifunanya. Sometimes you need both. 11:59 p.m. The village outside was absolutely silent. No dogs barking, no night birds calling. Even the insects seemed to have gone quiet. It was the silence of held breath, of prey hiding from a predator, of the world itself pausing. The clock on the wall clicked over to midnight. Nothing happened. 1 minute passed, 2, 3. Ifunanya began to relax. See? Just superstition, just fear, passed down through. The knock came. 3 sharp raps on the front door. Ifunanya's breath caught. Mama Nkoli's grip on the iron knife tightened until her knuckles went white. Another knock. This time from the back door, then from the shuttered window, then from the roof, then from beneath the floor. All around them, the house was surrounded by knocking. A steady rhythm, deliberate, patient. "Don't answer," Mama Nkoli whispered. "Don't even breathe loud." The knocking stopped. In the silence that followed, Ifunanya could hear something else. Footsteps, heavy, slow, walking around the house, circling, testing. Then came the voice. "Mama Nkoli, it's me, it's Nnamdi, your husband. I've come home, my wife. Open the door. I'm so cold out here." Mama Nkoli's face went pale. Her husband, Ifunanya's grandfather, had been dead for 15 years. "Don't answer," Mama Nkoli breathed. "It's not him. It's never them." But the voice continued, so familiar, so perfect in its mimicry, that Ifunanya understood how people might be fooled, how, in a moment of grief or loneliness or desperation, someone might convince themselves that yes, maybe death had made a mistake, maybe loved ones could come back, maybe this one time. "Mama Nkoli, please, I know what I did. I know I left you alone, but I'm back now. Just open the door. Let me see you one more time." Tears streamed down Mama Nkoli's face, but she didn't move, didn't speak. The knife in her hand trembled, but remained raised. The voice changed. Now it was younger, feminine. "Ifunanya, baby girl, it's your mother. I need you to come outside. Your grandmother is lying to you. There's nothing dangerous here. It's all in her head. She's sick, baby. She needs help. Come outside and we'll get her help together." Ifunanya's mother was alive and well in Lagos, but the voice was perfect. Every inflection, every pet name, everything. "Don't answer," Mama Nkoli repeated. "Whatever you see, whatever you hear." The shutters over the window began to rattle. Something was testing them, pushing against them. The wood creaked under pressure that shouldn't exist. Nothing physical could push that hard without breaking through. One of the 7 candles flickered and died. Mama Nkoli gasped. She lunged for the matchbox, hands shaking so badly she could barely strike a match. She relit the candle just as the second one began to gutter. "It's trying to come in," she whispered. "The protection is weakening. Ifunanya, you must stay awake. No matter how tired you feel, you must not sleep. If you sleep now, it will take you." And that's when Ifunanya felt it. A heavy, drowsy weight settling over her mind like a blanket. Her eyelids grew heavy. Her thoughts slowed. Sleep pulled at her with irresistible force. I can't stay awake." Ifunanya's head nodded forward. Mama Nkoli slapped her. Hard. The sharp pain jolted Ifunanya back to alertness. "Fight it. This is how it takes people. It makes you sleep. Forces sleep on you. Then, when your spirit leaves your body, it catches you, traps you, eats what you are and sends back something else wearing your skin." Ifunanya bit her own tongue, tasting blood, using the pain to stay conscious. But the drowsiness kept coming in waves, each one stronger than the last. Outside, the footsteps stopped directly in front of the door, and then, for the first time, they heard its real voice, not mimicking anyone, just itself. It sounded like wind through a hollow tree, like the breath of something that had been breathing for centuries. like words spoken in a language that existed before humans learned to speak. But somehow, impossibly, Ifunanya understood it. You broke the pact. You denied me my feast. So now, I take what I want. The girl is young. Her dreams are strong. I can feed on her for years. Let me in, old woman. Give her to me, and I'll leave the rest of you alone tonight. Never, Mama Nikoli said, her voice steady despite her terror. You'll have to wait until I'm dead, demon. And even then, she'll know the rules. The thing outside laughed. It was not a human sound. Then I'll wait. I'm very patient. I've waited 300 years. I can wait 300 more. But every night, I'll come. Every night, I'll knock. Every night, I'll call. And one night, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 10 years, someone will be too tired. Someone will slip. Someone will sleep when they shouldn't. And then, the presence retreated. The footsteps moved away. The pressure against the shutters eased. But it wasn't gone. Ifunanya could feel it still, out there, circling the village, moving from house to house, testing, calling, waiting for someone to make a mistake. The night stretched on, hours that felt like days. Mama and Koli and Ifunanya took turns slapping each other awake when drowsiness threatened. They sang songs, they prayed, they told stories, they did anything to stay conscious, to keep their minds active, to resist the unnatural sleep that the entity pushed at them like a drug. At 5:47 a.m., the first hint of dawn appeared on the horizon. The presence left immediately. One moment it was there, a weight in the air, a pressure against the house, and the next it was gone, as completely as if it had never existed. The candles burned down to nubs. Mama and Koli finally lowered the iron knife, and Ifunanya, modern and educated and certain she understood the world, sat in her grandmother's house and wept because she'd felt it. The thing outside. It wasn't superstition. It wasn't collective delusion. It was real, ancient, hungry, patient, and it would be back tonight and every night after, forever. Dawn brought a transformation to Obiagu. As soon as sunlight touched the village, life resumed. People emerged from their houses, exhausted but relieved. Markets opened. Children were sent to school. Everything returned to a simulation of normalcy. But Ifunanya could see what she'd missed yesterday. The exhaustion carved into every face. The way people moved, like sleepwalkers, through their daylight hours. The hollowness in their eyes that spoke of decades of interrupted sleep, of nights spent in constant vigilance, of a life lived in fear of darkness. You understand now, Mama Nkuli said over breakfast. Neither of them had slept yet. You understand why I told you not to come, why I told you to leave. I can't leave you here, Ifunanya said. Grandmother, come to Lagos. You don't have to live like this. And leave my home, the land where my ancestors are buried, the village where I was born? Mama Nkoli shook her head. No, child, this is my place. I will die here. But you should go, today, before another night comes. There has to be a way to stop it, to end this curse. Many have tried, all have failed. But what if someone could recreate the original pact? Give the entity what it was promised? Mama Nkoli's expression darkened. You would doom the village to eternal servitude. Because that's what the pact meant. Once a month, forever, the entity would feast on our dreams. And as it grew stronger, it would demand more. One night becomes two. Two becomes every night. That's how these things work. You feed a monster, the monster only grows hungrier. Then what? We just accept this? Forever. We survive. That's what we do. We survive. But Ifunanya couldn't accept that. She spent the day talking to villagers, gathering stories, trying to understand the entity better. What she learned both terrified and enlightened her. An old man named Papa Obi, who claimed to be a descendant of the original Dibia Namdi, explained what his ancestor had discovered. The entity is not evil in the way humans understand evil. It's more like a force of nature, like hunger itself given form. It exists in the realm of dreams, that space between waking and sleeping, where consciousness goes when the body rests. But what is it really? Ifunanya asked. A predator, an ancient thing that learned to feed on the energy that sleeping minds generate. Human dreams are powerful, you see. They're pure thought given form, pure emotion, pure consciousness untethered from physical reality. And the entity learned to consume that consciousness like a lion consumes a gazelle. So it's literally eating people's souls. Not souls, dreams. But when it takes too much, when it consumes dreams for too long, it leaves the dreamer empty, a body without consciousness. Or worse, it replaces what it took with something else, something of itself. That's why some people come back wrong. They're not fully human anymore. They're part human, part dream entity. Hybrids that shouldn't exist. And breaking the pact made it angry? Not angry, hungry. The pact provided regular meals. Breaking it meant the entity had to hunt again, had to take by force what was no longer offered freely. And when such things hunt, they are not gentle, they are not precise, they destroy. Ifunanya talked to other villagers. Each added pieces to the puzzle. A young mother explained how her daughter almost slept past midnight once, and how she'd had to hold the child's eyes open physically for 4 hours until dawn. The girl fighting and crying and begging to sleep, while something scratched at the window and called the daughter's name in the voice of her dead father. A teenage boy showed Ifunanya his collection of iron nails, kept in every pocket, explained how he'd ventured outside after midnight once on a dare, and how the nails were the only thing that saved him. The entity couldn't fully manifest near iron, could only circle and threaten, but not touch. An elderly woman spoke of the year she was 19, when she fell asleep at 12:13 a.m. and woke at dawn screaming, unable to recognize her own family for 3 days, convinced she was someone else, somewhere else, living a life that had never been hers. It put me in someone else's dream, she whispered, trapped me there, showed me what it's like to be consumed, to be food. I still have nightmares about those dreams, dreams about being eaten slowly, piece by piece, by something made of mathematics and hunger. By midday, Ifunanya had a plan. It was insane, dangerous. It would probably fail, but she couldn't leave her grandmother, leave these people to this endless torment without at least trying. I'm going to confront it, Ifunanya announced that evening as darkness approached. Mama Nicole nearly dropped the pot she was holding. You're going to what? I'm going to stay awake past midnight, follow the rules, but when it comes, when it calls for me, I'm going to answer. I'm going to try to communicate with it. That's suicide. Maybe, but what if it's not? What if it's intelligent enough to bargain with? Namdi bargained with it 300 years ago. What if we can make a new deal? Or it will take you, and will bury an empty thing that looks like you tomorrow. Ifunanya took her grandmother's hands. I have advantages Namdi didn't have. I'm educated. I understand psychology, negotiation, game theory. I know how to structure deals that benefit both parties. And most importantly, I'm offering something it hasn't had in 3 centuries. A willing participant, someone who isn't afraid. You should be afraid. Oh, I'm terrified. But I'm more angry than afraid. This thing has imprisoned an entire village, stolen 300 years of peace. traumatized generations. Someone has to stand up to it. Someone has to try. Mama Nkoli was quiet for a long time. Then, if you do this, I'm staying with you. Whatever happens, you won't face it alone. Grandmother, I didn't raise your mother and watch her raise you just to send you into the darkness by yourself. We do this together, or not at all. Midnight approached for the second time, but tonight was different. Tonight, Ifunanya was ready. She'd prepared carefully, 7 candles burning, iron knife in hand, borrowed from her grandmother, doors and windows locked. But unlike last night, she sat in the center of the room, visible through the window, making no effort to hide. When midnight came, the knock arrived within seconds. 3 raps, front door, back door, windows, floor, ceiling, all around. But this time, when the knock came, Ifunanya spoke. I hear you. I know what you are, and I want to talk. The knocking stopped immediately. Silence. Then the footsteps. Slow, heavy. They stopped directly outside the window. The air grew thick, like a held breath that belonged to something far larger than the house, larger than the village itself. You break the rules, the entity said, not with sound alone, but directly inside Ifunanya's mind. You invite death. I invite conversation, Ifunanya replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. You're intelligent. You understand bargains. You made one before. A shape began to form in the darkness beyond the glass. Not a body, more like a distortion. The night itself bent inward, folding like cloth pulled through a ring. Within that fold were shifting images. Eyes that opened and closed, mouths that spoke without lips, fragments of other people's dreams bleeding into one another. You dare speak to me as an equal, it said. You are food. I'm a negotiator, Ifunanya said, and you're starving. That made it pause. For the first time since midnight, the pressure eased slightly. You know this, it said slowly. Yes, I hunger. The pact fed me. The breaking of it forced me to hunt. But I will not return to chains. No, Ifunanya agreed. Not chains, balance. Mama Nkoli squeezed her hand. Fear etched deep into her face, but she did not interrupt. You don't need to take everything, Ifunanya continued. You don't need to hollow people out. That damages your food source. Look around you. 300 years of exhaustion, trauma, broken minds. You're feeding on scraps now, on terror, on resistance. The entity's presence rippled. Images flashed through Ifunanya's mind. Rich, vivid dreams from the past. Color, emotion, depth, followed by the thin, frantic dreams of the present. Brittle and defensive. You propose a new offering, it said. Yes, not forced sleep, not fear, choice. The entity laughed. A sound like cracking ice in a vast ocean of darkness. Humans do not choose to be eaten. Some will, Ifunanya said. Dreamers, volunteers, artists. People trained to enter deep dream states safely. You take a portion, never all. And in return, you stop hunting. No more knocking, no more stolen minds, no more midnight terror. And why would I trust you? It asked. Because I'm offering myself first. Mama Nkoli cried out. No! Ifunanya didn't look away from the window. I'll open the door, between waking and dreaming, she said. I'll let you feed, but on my terms. I'll teach others how to do it safely, limited, controlled. And if you break the agreement, if you hunt again, we'll close the door forever. I've learned how. That was a lie, but it was a convincing one. The entity withdrew slightly, considering. Hunger radiated from it. Not wild, not furious, but ancient and calculating. You would walk in dreams, it said, like the first Dibia. Yes, but I won't worship you, and I won't fear you. Silence stretched. Then, very well, Ifunanya of Obiagu, lion-hearted girl, we will try your way. The pressure vanished, the darkness relaxed. The night released its grip. And know this, the entity added, if you fail me, I will not knock next time. Dawn came without incident. No voices, no footsteps, no stolen souls. For the first time in 300 years, the village slept past midnight and woke whole. 3 years later, Obiagu changed, but quietly. Outsiders noticed little at first. The village still warned visitors, still respected the night. But the terror was gone. The candles became tradition, not desperation. The locks were habit, not panic. And some nights, carefully chosen nights, a small group gathered under the Iroko tree. Ifunanya, now called Nwanyi-Nro, the woman who walks dreams, guided them. She taught breathing techniques, anchors of identity, how to enter dreams without losing oneself, how to return. The entity fed, not on fear, but on abundance. No one was taken. No one returned wrong. Mama Nkoli lived long enough to see children play without exhaustion in their eyes. Long enough to sleep through the night, one last time before joining the ancestors. And when she died, peacefully, nothing knocked. They say Obiagu is still there, hidden among the southeastern forests. They say the village no longer fears midnight, but respects it. They say dreams are powerful things, powerful enough to heal, powerful enough to destroy, powerful enough to feed ancient gods. So if you ever find yourself unable to sleep after midnight, if you hear your name called when no one is there, if your dreams feel watched, stay awake and remember, not every monster wants to kill you. Some just want to eat. If you enjoyed this African folktale of curses, courage, and broken promises, subscribe, like, and share it. Because stories are dreams too. And some things are always listening. May the ancestors watch over your sleep.